My name is Emily Carter. I am 26 years old. I like quiet mornings, old novels, and fixing small problems like slow computers or broken phones. I try to be kind. I always try to help people. But my family thinks I am a joke. They call me still broke like it is a badge. Tonight was my birthday dinner. I sat there quietly while they laughed. The worst part of the night happened at the restaurant when a man stood up from inside the dining room and walked straight to our table. He smiled at me and said, "Emily, good to see you." "Boss." My sister dropped her fork. My mom put her hand to her mouth and nearly fainted. Everyone at the table froze. For a long moment, no one could make a sound. The room seemed to hold its breath. That is the moment I wanted to write down first, so you know how crazy the night became. But I cannot tell you everything yet. I will let the story roll back to the beginning and show you how small things grew into something huge. Right now, picture the fork hitting the plate, the clink like thunder. Picture my sister's face going white. Picture my mother holding herself like she might tip over. The stranger's voice said one word, "Boss." Then he smiled. And everyone looked at me. I sat quietly. I smiled too. But inside I felt my heart beating fast. The cliffhanger is this: where did that man come from, and what did boss mean? I will keep you waiting just a little, because the story needs its time. Let me tell you how it all began. I grew up in a small town near Columbus, Ohio. My father left when I was young, and my mother worked 2 jobs for years. We did not have much money. I learned to be careful with pennies. I learned how to make a dollar stretch. When I turned 18, I left for college on a tiny scholarship and a hope that I might find something better. I studied computer science because I liked puzzles. I liked how small errors made big problems and how fixing one thing could make everything better. After college, the job offers were not great. I worked at a coffee shop, then at a small tech store fixing phones. I learned a lot. I stayed late to learn new software. I read forums and watched videos at midnight. I practiced building little apps that did useful things. I did not tell my family most of it. They only saw the slow paychecks and the nights I slept on a couch. My sister, Anna, got a steady job at a bank. She wore nice clothes and went on trips. My mom loved Anna for her steady life. They said things to me that hurt, sometimes in front of guests. They laughed about my broke days. I laughed too, because it felt safer than crying. At 22, I started a small freelance job fixing a friend's online store. He paid me a few $100s. I used that to buy a better laptop. Then I fixed another store. I learned to make online tools that helped small sellers track their orders and talk to customers. It was slow. I had nights when I cried because bills stacked up. I had mornings when I ate cereal for dinner to save money. But I kept working away quietly, like building a small house brick by brick. I did not tell my family because they would say, "When are you going to get a real job?" They did not understand that what I was doing could become something big. When I was 24, I moved to a town near Chicago for a job that promised more. The job was okay, but the best thing was meeting other people who made websites and apps. I joined small groups online where people traded tips. Slowly, my little tools started to help more online sellers. One of my tools made it easier to ship packages the right way. Another made it easier to reply to angry customers with calm messages. Sellers liked those things. They told their friends. I charged a small fee at first. I saved every dollar. I started a small company in my tiny apartment. I called it Carter Tools. At first, only a few people used my tools. I did most of the work alone. I spent evenings coding and weekends fixing bugs. The work was lonely, but I loved it. I loved solving hard problems. I imagined the day when someone would say, "Emily, you helped save my business." I imagined people trusting the tools I made. But my family still did not hear any of this. They only heard that I was starting things and still broke. My birthday that year came around. I turned 26. My mom called and said she wanted to have dinner in a restaurant with the family. Anna picked a busy Italian place downtown where the lights were low and the plates were big. I thought it would be nice. I told myself I would go and be happy to eat pasta. I did not expect anything special. When I arrived, my mom hugged me too tight and said, "You're still so thin, Em." Anna laughed and said loud enough for the waiter to hear, maybe because she's still broke and eats ramen. The waiter smiled politely. My cousin made a joke about my startup dreams and how it would be nice when I finally paid them back for last year's Christmas gifts. I sat quietly and sucked in the pasta sauce. I forced a small smile. I had learned to make polite heads nod when people threw petty comments. I had learned to breathe. The conversation moved like a river around me. They spoke about jobs, promotions, and trips. My uncle told a story about his new boat. My cousin showed pictures of a trip to Mexico. Anna kept bringing up the same point. She liked stability. She said, "Emily's too dreamy." The word broke popped out again. It felt like someone hitting a nail slowly. I wanted to tell them about the new clients I had found, or the new update that fixed a big bug for one seller. But when I tried to speak, Anna cut me off. "We know," she said in that tone you use when you do not actually want to listen. So I stayed quiet again. I ate and I listened. 20 minutes into dinner, something changed the air. A man in a dark suit walked in. He looked like he belonged at big meetings. His hair was gray at the temples, and his smile was kind but direct. He scanned the room, and then he walked over to our table like he knew someone there. My heart felt like a small thing beating fast. He stopped at our table and turned his smile to me. "Emily," he said. His voice was calm. He was not loud, but it cut through the chatter like a bell. I nodded. I had never seen him before. My mother frowned. Anna rolled her eyes. The man then said something that made the whole table go quiet. He said, "Emily, good to see you." "Boss." He said the word as if it were the normal thing to call someone you had worked with for years. Anna's fork dropped. The clatter was sharp. It sounded like a dropped coin in a glass bowl. My mom's face blanched. She looked at the man and then at me like she had seen a ghost. My uncle whispered, "Who is he?" My cousin's phone fell from his hands and beeped on the floor. The waiter stared, unsure. A woman at the next table turned around. Someone in the corner laughed nervously and then stopped. The man's smile did not change. He reached across and extended his hand. "Emily Carter," he asked again, like he needed to be sure. I took his hand because it felt wrong to do anything else. He was warm and firm, and his fingers smelled faintly of coffee. He sat down in the empty chair beside my mom without asking permission. My mom stiffened. She had always liked people who followed polite rules. This man had his own rules. "I'm David Monroe," he said. "CEO of Market Lane." He said it like he did not need to explain. In that moment, I heard 1,000 small things in my head. Market Lane was a big company that made tools for online sellers. I had once used a free trial of theirs to test something. I had spoken to someone there months ago when I asked a question on a forum. But I never thought it would matter. I certainly never thought that the CEO would show up to my birthday dinner. David looked at my mother and said in a friendly voice, "Your daughter's software helped us avoid a huge problem last month. We had a bug that could have cost us a lot. She found a clever fix and saved the day." I thought I should meet her. He turned back to me and used that small word again. "Boss." I felt my cheeks get hot. My sister's eyes were wide like saucers. My mom's hand that was holding her wine glass began to shake. The room hummed with whispers. I wanted to explain that I had only made a small fix, that I had not asked for anything, that I had only been trying to learn. But the man's words were already moving like a wave, washing over the table and changing everything. Anna said something then, but she did not finish. Her voice cracked. You fixed what?" she asked. She sounded as if she had been cut. It was the tone people use when they realize they were wrong. My mom's mouth opened and then closed. My cousin's face looked like someone who had swallowed a lemon. David smiled at me again and said, "Emily, we'd like to hire you full-time. We need someone who thinks like you." I did not expect that. My knees felt weak. I swallowed hard. My mother's eyes filled with tears that were not all happy. I could hear her breathing catch. Anna's jaw dropped so low I could see the white of her teeth. My family's mockery had turned into silence, then shock. They could not find their words. For a moment, I felt a quiet, bubbling satisfaction, like a small fire lit under my chest. But I did not say anything. I had learned that quiet sometimes speaks louder than words. The waiter came with bread and water, and for a moment the restaurant returned to its regular sounds: clinking plates, low music, people talking. But at our table, the air felt electric. Someone at the next table was whispering, "Is she the one?" My mother leaned in and whispered, "Emily, is that true?" I nodded, but my head was spinning. How did David even know my name? How did he know about my fix? Did people at Market Lane tell him? Was this a mistake? Before I could answer, the restaurant's front door opened again. A group of suited people followed David in. They moved like they belonged together, like they had come for a meeting. Heads turned. My cousin's phone lit up with messages. I could see people at nearby tables pointing. David stood up and said, "Emily, may I introduce the team?" His voice was calm and clear. He smiled at them and then at me. He said, "This is Karen, head of product. This is Marcus, head of engineering." The team's eyes met mine. They nodded politely. My family leaned in, hungry for information. Anna asked, "Are you sure you want her?" She stopped in the middle of the word. David looked at her and then at me and said simply, "We think she's exactly what we need." He used the word "we" like an invitation and the word "boss" like a crown. For a second, I felt like I was wearing a crown. My chest lifted. My mother's hand tightened around her napkin. She looked at me and then at David like she was trying to put two puzzle pieces together. Her voice was small when she said, "Emily, you never told me you were doing this." I wanted to tell her I had tried to tell her so many times, but the word stuck. Instead, I looked at David and said, "Thank you." My voice trembled a little. Then something happened that no one at the table expected. The waiter came back with the dessert menu and placed it down, but his hand trembled and the menu slipped. A candle from another table flickered and went out. Someone at the bar laughed nervously, and the laughter felt wrong. The lights seemed to dim a fraction, just for a beat, and a server dropped a tray somewhere near the kitchen. All those small things piled up into an uneasy feeling, like the calm right before a storm. My phone buzzed. I saw a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Urgent." I frowned. I did not know who it was. At the same time, David leaned closer and quietly asked me, "Emily, are you free tomorrow morning? I want to talk about a role." I opened my mouth to say yes. And then, in the middle of that small moment, an extreme thing happened. The lights in the restaurant flickered hard and then went out for a second. In that second of darkness, someone shouted. Someone ran. The group at the next table started to cry out in surprise. The restaurant plunged into a low hum of panic. My heart jumped into my throat. When the lights snapped back on, the man across from me, my cousin, was on the floor, clutching his chest. He looked pale, his lips blue at the edges. People around him were shouting, "Call 911. Somebody call 911. Panic rose like a wave. My mother screamed. Anna stood up so fast her chair fell back. The CEO and his team were suddenly moving, people were dialing phones, and the chef came out to see what was happening. My mind went blank for a second. I did not know how to help. I had never seen anything like this before in my life. That is where I will end chapter 1. The lights returned and the restaurant fell into chaos. My cousin was on the floor and everyone rushed. I reached for the phone in my pocket and my hands shook. My family looked at me with new eyes, fear and confusion filling their faces. Outside, city noises continued like nothing had happened. Inside the restaurant, time had ruptured. I had a small spark of something: responsibility, fear, and a strange kind of peace. I did not know what would happen next. The cliffhanger hangs like a crack in glass. Would my cousin be okay? What would David do? Would this night end in shame or in something else entirely? Stop. Don't go further yet. When the lights went out and my cousin hit the floor, the whole restaurant turned into noise. People shouted. Chairs scraped. A woman near the bar dropped her purse. Someone was crying. For one thin second, I felt like the world had moved into slow motion. I could hear my own breathing loud in my ears. David, who had been smiling only minutes before, moved first. He pushed his chair back and stood up fast. His tie was loose now, but he did not care. He looked at my cousin and then at me. "Emily," he said, voice steady, "do you know CPR?" I felt the heat rush to my face. I had taken a CPR class in college because I wanted to be ready for anything, mostly to check a box on a list in my head. I had never used it for real. But when David asked, something in me sliced through the fear. Yes, I said. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped the floor. People made a circle, but it was not a big circle, the kind that lets someone breathe. It was a tight, panicked crowd. My mom was crying, but she had a phone in her hand, already dialing. Anna was yelling at someone to move their bag. My uncle knelt, his face gray as the tablecloth. David did not wait. He spoke clearly, like he gave commands at work. Clear some space. Someone, call 911. Now. A young man near the bar shoved a chair back and ran to the front desk. The waiter, who had been shaking, came with a first aid kit. He opened it with hands that trembled like leaves. I knelt beside my cousin. His skin felt cold. His breaths were short and fast. I looked at his face, Mark, loud and full of stories, the cousin who always joked, but now he looked small and frightened. I put one hand on his forehead and the other on his chest. My training came back like a map. Head tilt, chin lift, I said, and the waiter helped me. I did chest compressions the way I was taught, slow and steady. The man at my side counted out loud to keep the rhythm. People were whispering my name like I was an echo. Come on, Mark, I said, though it felt strange to whisper to someone who had been teasing me about my startup dreams just hours earlier. The world was too big to keep grudges then. Only carefit. After what felt like too long, Mark coughed and opened his eyes. He looked confused. His hand flapped at the air like a small bird. People around us breathed as if they had been holding their breath for ages and just let it go. My mom cried harder, but this time they were happy tears. She started to murmur things like, thank you, as if my CPR had been a gift to her heart itself. The siren of the ambulance came like an answer to a prayer. It pulled up outside and 2 EMTs ran in with a bright bag and calm faces. They took over without fuss. They asked me what happened. I told them I did CPR and that Mark had collapsed. They checked his vitals and praised me for starting compressions. One of them said, "You kept him alive. That first minute matters." I felt a strange new pride that did not come from proving anyone wrong. It came from being useful when someone needed me. They put Mark on a stretcher and told us to come to the hospital if we wanted. My mom grabbed her purse and the napkin from the table like it had become a treasure. Anna held herself together, but her hands were still shaking. David asked if I wanted to ride in the ambulance. I thought about saying no. I thought about my small apartment and my laptop and the work I had to finish, but my cousin was family. Yes, I said. We rushed out into the cold night air. The city lights were little stars in a row. The EMTs worked quickly and carefully. David stayed calm and spoke kindly to my mom. "We'll follow in my car," he said. He pulled out his phone and started to call someone. I watched him and felt something in my chest that was not only gratitude but a new trust. I had just met him, yet in a minute of crisis, he had shown steadiness. At the hospital, the emergency room smelled faintly of bleach and something clean that meant people were trying to keep everyone safe. Mark was taken through a big door into a room where nurses moved like a practice dance. My mom sat in a plastic chair and cried into a tissue. Anna sat with her head in her hands. My uncle stood at the window looking small. David sat beside me and handed me a bottle of water. He did not ask me questions that felt too personal. He simply said, "You did a good thing tonight." It was more than words. It was like a blanket when it is cold. People came and went. The doctor explained things slowly. Mark had fainted because his heart had a small rhythm issue. He would need tests, but for now he was okay. The doctor gave us a look that told us to be gentle with hope. The night had shifted. What had started as joking about still broke and startup dreams had turned into something else. My family's faces were different, softer, thoughtful. My mother kept touching my hand like she wanted to make sure I was real. Anna was quiet now, like she had swallowed her sharp words and kept them for later. David stayed until Mark was admitted for observation. He told me he would check in the morning. Before he left, he put a small card in my hand. It had his name and the name of his company, Market Lane, and a line that said, "Call me when you can. We should talk about your work." I looked at the card like it was a tiny map to a different life. Back at home that night, the apartment felt too small and full of noise from the city outside. I could not sleep. My mind kept replaying the dinner, the fork dropping, my cousin on the floor, David calling me boss. The phone on my bedside table blinked with messages. Some were from friends asking if Mark was okay. One was from Anna, "We need to talk tomorrow." It had 3 dots that made me worry. The next morning, I woke early. I put on jeans and a sweater and went to the hospital. Mark was awake and embarrassed. He kept apologizing between the beeps of the monitor. "I hate hospitals," he said. "I'm sorry I scared you all." My mom hugged him like she had found him again. Anna sat at the bed and looked at him with eyes that did not have the usual sparkle. She seemed tired. Later that day, as Mark slept, a nurse stepped into the hallway and asked my mom and Anna to wait in a small room. They left me standing there with a mug of hospital coffee that tasted of cardboard and kindness. I looked at the Market Lane card in my pocket and thought about calling David. I almost did, then I stopped. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to think. I wanted to breathe. When my mom and Anna came back, my mother had a look I had not seen in years. It was the look of a woman who had learned something new about her own child. She took my hand and said quietly, "Emily, we were wrong to make fun." "I'm sorry." The apology hit me like rain. I wanted to say everything, how hard it had been to keep working, how proud I felt to have kept making tools, but the words choked in my throat. Instead, I squeezed her hand and said, "It's okay." Anna looked at me, and I saw something in her I had not seen before, a crack of fear. She had always been the sure one, the steady banker with plans and savings. Now, in the hospital light, she looked like someone who had been taught that money equals safety, and the world had shown her a different truth, that life could turn in a second, and being kind mattered more than the number in your account. We left the hospital that afternoon. Mark promised to rest and to follow the doctor's instructions. He joked a little to break the tension, but his laughs were quieter now. Back at home, the family was silent more than usual. The jokes about "still broke" were gone. The silence felt heavy and honest. The next day, David called. He said, "Emily, can you come to Market Lane tomorrow? We want to show you something." He sounded bright and careful. I felt nervous and excited. I told my mother and Anna, and my mother smiled like she had been given a small miracle. Anna folded her arms, but did not say no. She said, "If this is real, tell him yes." When I walked into Market Lane the next morning, the building felt huge and full of people who wore calm faces like uniforms. The reception smelled of coffee and new paper. I met Karen and Marcus from the dinner. They were friendly and professional. They showed me a room with white boards and a big screen. They explained how they used my small tool to find a bug that could have cost them thousands of dollars. They told me they wanted me to come and work with them on a project that could help millions of sellers. It felt like a dream. I listened and my mind filled with ideas. They asked me if I wanted to lead a small team. I felt my heart beat fast. I thought about my lonely apartment, my late nights, my cheap dinners. I thought about how my family had laughed at me. I thought about Mark and how fragile life was. I wanted to smile out loud, to laugh, to tell every person who had ever said "still broke" that I was not the same person they saw. But before I could answer, and I wanted to think, to be sure, a loud alarm went off in the building. Red lights blinked. People stood up fast. A voice over the PA said, "Evacuate the building. Fire alarm. Please leave immediately." At first, I thought it was a drill. Then I smelled smoke. People moved toward the stairs. The calm faces showed worry. Karen grabbed my arm and said, "We need to go." We walked down the stairwell in a stream of bodies. I gripped the metal railing until my hands hurt. The smell of smoke got stronger on the lower floors, like a bad story getting closer. When we burst out onto the street, the sky felt too big. Fire trucks arrived. A crowd formed. The firemen pointed hoses and shouted. Smoke curled like long fingers into the air. The building across had windows with curtains darkened by soot. People were filming with their phones. Someone near me murmured, "Is everyone out?" And the answer hung like a question in my chest. They told us later the fire had started in the kitchen on the 42nd floor, an electric short that had moved fast. No one knew why it had started, but the emergency teams were doing their work. I stood on the sidewalk with a sweater wrapped around my shoulders and felt small. I had thought the alarm might have been a test or a signal that everything was safe now that I had a chance at a job. But instead, it was a reminder that life does not stop for our plans. As we watched the smoke, my phone buzzed. A text came from an unknown number. "We need to talk. There's been a problem." I looked at the number and felt a cold knot in my stomach. I did not know who had sent it. At the same time, David grabbed my hand and said, "Emily, are you okay?" His grip was firm and kind. Before I could answer, the fire truck's sirens changed pitch as if moving away. People began to whisper about damage and loss. Someone next to me pointed and said, "Is that?" But the man did not finish. A small crowd formed and a camera flashed. My heart hammered with new fear and a new question. The night when my cousin fell and the dinner when everyone laughed had become a chain of surprises I had not expected. And then, as the smoke rose, a new sound cut through the crowd, a sharp crack, like glass breaking. From the building's upper windows, something fell, small and bright and spinning, heading straight down toward the sidewalk where people were still gathered. Everyone looked up, mouths open. The thing turned in the air and then hit the pavement with a hard, echoing sound. People started to run. I had no time to think. The world had become sharp edges and sudden decisions. The object on the ground glowed for a second and then went dark. Someone screamed. The firefighters shouted to clear the road. I looked at David, at the smoke, at the crowd, and I felt a cold fear that nodded with a strange resolve. Tonight was not over. The chain of things that had begun at my birthday dinner had stretched into flames and falling glass. I reached for my phone again. The unknown number had sent another message. "It's about Market Lane. You should know." My hands trembled as I read the words. That is where I will leave chapter 2. The fire blazed in the building. A piece of debris had just fallen among the crowd, and a mysterious text hinted there was more trouble coming. My heart beat loud and my thoughts spun like leaves. Questions piled up like smoke. Was the fire an accident? Who sent the text? What would happen to Market Lane and to me? Would my family be safe? The cliffhanger hangs in the air like steam, hot and full of fear, and I will not go further yet. The smoke from the Market Lane building still hung in the air like a bad dream. People talked in quiet voices on the sidewalk. Firefighters walked back and forth with big hoses. I stood with David and his team under a street lamp that smelled faintly of wet iron and damp jackets. My hands felt cold. David kept looking at me like he wanted to make sure I was okay. He asked soft questions, the kind that did not rush me. "Do you want us to drive you home?" he asked. I shook my head. My mind was full of pictures. Mark on the floor, the fork hitting the plate, Anna's face when she saw him. I wanted to be near my family. I wanted to know what would happen next. Karen put her hand on my shoulder. "We need to secure the servers tonight," she said. Her voice was steady and quiet. "We can't leave data at risk after a fire." Marcus looked at me with worry in his eyes. "Emily, if you can, we'd like you to help us check things. Your fix helped us before. You know our systems best." The words made my chest feel tight. I had not expected to be pulled into work so soon after my cousin fainted, but Market Lane was not just any company now. They were connected to the night's strange events, and they wanted my help. My phone buzzed again. The unknown number sent a new message. "Meet me at the back of the building. Come alone." My stomach flipped. I looked up at David and then at his team. I did not want to meet someone unknown alone, not with the smoke near and the building still smelling of burned wires. I slid the phone back into my pocket without answering. We followed David into a small van with Market Lane written on the side. The company had arranged a quiet place for their team to work away from the press. Inside, there were laptops, boxes of cables, and the hum of a generator. It felt like a safe bubble. Marcus handed me a hot cup of coffee that tasted like a small victory. Karen spread papers across a table and drew a map of servers and backup rooms. "We think the fire was an accident," she said. "But that falling debris from the window is odd. We were not expecting anything to fall from the top floors. Also, there are messages coming in about threats to our data." Her voice dropped a little. "We need to check the backups and the logs. If anything was stolen or corrupted, we must know." I sat and listened. My fingers tapped the table without meaning to. My life until that night had been mostly small and quiet. I built tools in late hours. I fixed bugs and stayed late to read forums. I had not planned to be in the middle of a company emergency, but things had a way of pulling me in. I looked at the team. They were tired, brave, and real. I wanted to help them the way I had helped my cousin on the floor, steady and useful. We worked late into the night. I looked at lines of code and server names. Marcus showed me a backup server that should have copies of everything Market Lane owned. We checked logs, little records that show who entered a room, who moved files, and what computers talked to each other. Someone had tried to touch the backups the night of the fire. There were strange logins from a device that did not belong to any employee. It came from outside the building and connected in for a small, quiet time window. The code showed attempts to copy files. My heart slammed against my ribs. The texts, the falling object, the fire, were these all connected? Someone seemed to be trying to hurt the company. Someone wanted the data, or wanted something hidden. I felt like a detective peeking into a safe place and finding the lock had been picked. Around midnight, a Market Lane security guard burst into the van. His face was red from running. There was someone at the back of the building, he panted. A person in a hood dropped something by the service door and ran. I tried to follow but lost them. David's eyes narrowed. He stood and ran to the door. Karen and Marcus followed. I grabbed my coat and went too. Outside, the night air was colder and smelled like wet pavement. The street was quiet except for the distant buzz of a late bus. By the service door, someone had left a small package. It looked like a plain cardboard box tied with tape. No one was around. David crouched and picked up the box with gloved hands. His fingers trembled a little. He carried it over to the van. "Call the police," he said quietly. "Don't open it here." The guard nodded and pulled out his phone. We waited with our breaths puffing white in the air. My thoughts were loud. Whoever had left the package could be dangerous. Whoever had tried to copy the backups could want to harm people. I stood beside the van like a small island in a sea of worry. When the police came, they set up a tape barrier and asked us to step back. They had a police dog and serious faces. The dog sniffed the package and wagged slowly like it was thinking about something the way dogs always do. The officers opened the box carefully, using tools and steady hands. Inside, there was a sealed envelope and a small USB drive. The envelope had my name written on it in neat handwriting. My heart beat louder. They looked at me, and one of the officers said, "Miss Emily Carter? We found your name on this envelope. Do you know why?" My voice felt small when I answered. "No," I said. "I don't know." My mind flipped through moments like a flip book. The CEO calling me boss, the fork dropping, mark on the floor, the falling debris, the texts. Someone was sending messages to me, and they were getting closer. The officer passed me the envelope with caution gloves. My fingers felt like they belonged to someone else. The envelope felt thin and cold. Inside was a short note printed on a small piece of paper. It read, "You fixed our problem. Now please stop." No name, no signature, just those words. Below, someone had penciled an address and a time. It was a place near the river where old warehouses stayed closed at night. Someone in the crowd, Marcus, I think, muttered, "This is a trace. They want to make it personal." My chest tightened. Why would someone ask me to stop? I had only done my job. I had only fixed a bug. Maybe the fix had closed a door someone wanted open. Before I could think more, my phone buzzed again. The unknown number sent one last message. "Tonight? The Riverside Warehouse. Come alone." The text felt like a hand tapping on glass. My mind raced. My first thought was to tell the police and stay with the team. My second thought, quieter, was to see who wanted to talk. The person had called me boss and then sent threats. I felt a strange pull to take the call, like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to know how far it dropped. David saw my face and squeezed my shoulder. "Don't go alone," he said. His voice was a command and a care rolled together. "If someone wants to meet, we'll go together. We'll make sure it's safe." I nodded. I wanted to be brave, but not foolish. The night had already been full of surprises. I did not want to be another surprise the world had to answer for. We called the police and told them about the warehouse. Officers promised to patrol the area and set up a safe plan if anyone went. They said they would check the address. We drove slowly toward the river where the city kept old buildings empty and quiet. The sky was clear, but the air felt electric, like the world was holding its breath. The warehouse was dark and tall, with windows that looked like black teeth. A single lamp burned at an entrance far from the road. The police cars parked at a distance, lights blinking softly like eyes. David, Marcus, Karen, and I stepped out of the van. We kept our phones ready. The warehouse door was closed. The river moved quietly behind it. The streets smelled like oil and old paper. The whole place felt like a stage for something that had been planned carefully. We walked closer. The police stayed a little behind us for safety. Our footsteps echoed. I felt my heart hammering in my throat. The lamp above the door flickered once like a warning. Then, without any sound to warn us, the large metal door swung open with a hard, sudden bang. It slashed the quiet night. A figure stepped out from the darkness and their face was covered by a hood. The figure did not speak. They held a small black box in their hands. The box seemed to shine in the lamplight. Before anyone could move, a loud crash came from inside the warehouse, metal hitting metal like lightning striking a bell. Something heavy had fallen. The sound rolled into the night and into my bones. I felt my knees go weak. That is where I will leave chapter 3. The door had opened. A hooded figure stood in the light holding a strange black box, and a crash echoed from inside the warehouse. The police were close, the team was tense, and the night had turned into a place of waiting. I did not know what would come next. The cliffhanger hung there like a held breath, sharp and full of fear. The metal crash inside the warehouse echoed, so loudly it felt like the whole riverbank shook. For a moment, none of us moved. The hooded figure stood under the flickering lamp, holding the small black box like it was something fragile or something dangerous. David took one careful step forward. Karen whispered, "Don't," but her voice was so soft the wind almost carried it away. The police behind us lifted their flashlights, beams cutting through the darkness. "Stay where you are," one of the officers called out. The hooded figure didn't run. They didn't lift their hands. They didn't even look scared. They just tilted their head, as if they already knew every move we would make. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. Every part of me wanted to step back. But something else, something small and brave, kept my feet where they were. I didn't want to run from my own story. The figure finally spoke, voice muffled by the hood. "Emily Carter," they said, like they were reading my name from a list. "You weren't supposed to come with them." I felt every pair of eyes swing toward me. David stepped in front of me without thinking. "If you have something to say," he said firmly, "you'll say it with all of us here." The figure gave a quiet laugh. Not loud, not mocking, just strange. Like they knew something we didn't. "If that's how you want it," the figure murmured. Then, slowly, they lifted the small black box. The police tensed, hands moving toward their holsters. "Don't," I shouted before I could stop myself. But the hooded person didn't open the box. Instead, they held it out toward me. "This belongs to you," they said. My breath caught. "Why? What is it?" Before they could answer, another metallic crash burst from deep inside the warehouse, but this time it was followed by a sound that froze my blood. A voice shouting for help. A real voice. Scared. Weak. Human. One of the police officers reacted instantly. "We need backup," he yelled into his radio. Possible injured person inside. Lights from the patrol cars flashed wildly across the warehouse walls. The shout from inside came again, fainter this time. Someone was hurt. Without thinking, I stepped forward. David grabbed my arm. "Emily, no. Stay back." But he was too late. My feet had already moved closer to the door. The hooded figure dropped the black box at my feet as if placing a gift on the ground. Then, before anyone could grab them, they slipped back into the darkness of the warehouse, silent, fast, disappearing between the old metal beams like smoke. "Police, move in," an officer commanded. 2 officers rushed past me, flashlights raised, guns still holstered but ready. David and Karen pulled me back to the side of the building where it was safer. My whole body buzzed with fear and confusion. Why did the figure know my name? Why leave a box? Why lure me here? And who is screaming inside? The warehouse swallowed the officer's steps. David stood beside me, jaw tight, eyes sharp. If someone is in danger, we'll help, he said. But until we know what that box is, do not touch it. His voice shook slightly, even though he was trying to be strong for everyone. I nodded, but my eyes stayed locked on the small black box on the ground. It sat there quietly like it had been waiting for me for a very long time. Minutes crawled by. Police called out inside the warehouse. No answer. Then, suddenly, one officer shouted from deep inside. Found someone. They're alive, barely responsive. My breath stopped. Alive? Barely responsive? Who? Another flashlight flickered inside, then another. David let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Karen pressed her hand to her mouth. Marcus leaned against the wall, face pale. Two officers came out carrying someone between them, a person slumped, bruised, and exhausted. Their shirt was torn, their eyes unfocused. They looked like they had been inside the warehouse for a long time. My heart almost collapsed when I saw who it was. It was one of the Market Lane junior engineers. Jaden. He was young, quiet, always polite, the kind of person who said good morning even when he was tired. I remembered him from the dinner introduction. He had smiled nervously at me as if he didn't belong in a room full of executives. Now he could barely walk. My chest knotted as the police brought him into the streetlight. His voice was thin. I tried to stop them. They knew the system. They wanted access. They said your name, Emily. They said you were the obstacle. He coughed hard and almost fell. Marcus caught him. Jaden, talk to us, he begged. Who did this? Who was inside? Jaden shook his head weakly. I never saw their face. They kept saying, the fix ruined everything. My fix. The bug fix. The one David praised at the restaurant. The one that saved them money, but maybe blocked someone else's plan. I felt a cold, sharp fear rise in my stomach. Someone wasn't just messing with Market Lane. They were targeting anyone connected to that fix. Jaden swayed again. They want you to stop, he whispered to me. They kept saying they'd make sure you stopped. His head fell forward. The police caught him and rushed him toward the waiting ambulance. David placed both his hands on my shoulders. His face was pale and determined. Emily, someone out there is angry about your work. This isn't normal. This is someone who knows things. I swallowed hard. But I didn't do anything wrong. I know. David's voice softened. But in tech, even fixing a tiny loophole can ruin someone else's entire plan. Karen knelt beside the small black box. We have to know what's inside, she said quietly. Police will handle it, Marcus said sharply. But before they could call an officer over, the box made a tiny sound. A click. Not loud. Not scary. Just a quiet mechanical click, like unlocking a secret. We all froze. The police hurried toward us. One knelt to inspect the box. He put on gloves, tilted his head, and slowly opened the lid. Inside was no weapon. No threat. No device. Just paper. A single folded piece of white paper sitting on top of the small USB drive. The officer opened it. He frowned. No threats, he said. Just instructions. Instructions for what? David asked. The officer read the words aloud, slowly, as if they tasted strange in his mouth. If you want the truth, follow the trail. It begins with what you fixed, and ends with what they hid. That sentence alone made my heart thump painfully. Then the officer turned the paper over. On the back was written, Chapter 1, The Night You Were Mocked. I felt the air leave my lungs. They knew about the dinner. They knew about my family. They knew about everything. David looked at me, eyes wide. Emily, someone is watching you. The police glanced around the dark warehouse and the empty street. But nothing moved. Nothing spoke. The hooded figure was gone. And somewhere deep inside the warehouse, another small metallic sound echoed, like someone closing a door far, far away. That is where I will leave Chapter 4. A hooded figure had appeared. The police rescued a young engineer, and a mysterious letter revealed someone was tracking Emily's life closely. A dark trail had opened, and the first clue referenced the exact night her family mocked her. The next chapter will continue from this exact moment, with the black box, the message, the USB drive, and the question everyone fears. The words on that paper stayed in my mind like they were echoing inside a long hallway. Chapter 1. The Night You Were Mocked. It didn't feel like a note anymore. It felt like someone had pressed play on a story that involved me long before I even knew I was part of it. The police carefully placed the USB drive into a small evidence bag. David stayed close to me, the way someone stays close when they want to protect you, but aren't sure what danger looks like yet. The air around the warehouse felt colder now, like the night itself was watching. One officer spoke gently. "We'll take this to the station and examine what's on the USB. Try not to worry." But of course, worry was all I could do. Karen wrapped her coat tighter around her shoulders. "Who writes clues like this?" she whispered. "This feels personal." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "Whoever it is, they're smart. They planned this. They knew Emily would come. They knew the police would show up. They planted the message at the right moment." I stayed quiet, staring at the warehouse door. "Emily," David said softly, "look at me." I did. "You didn't cause this," he said. "Your work fixed something important. Someone else didn't like that. That's on them, not you." His voice was steady, and it helped, but only a little. Because even as he spoke, I kept hearing Jaden's voice from earlier. "They said you were the obstacle. They said they'd make sure you stopped." A cold shiver crept up my spine. The officers scanned the area with long beams of light, searching for anything the hooded figure left behind. They didn't find footprints, or fingerprints, or anything at all. Whoever that person was, they knew how to disappear. After a long hour, the police cleared us to leave. They kept the warehouse taped off and promised to have officers patrol the river all night. David offered to take me home, and for once, I didn't argue. The drive was quiet. The city moved past us, headlights, stoplights, shadows. My hands were still shaking. Not from fear exactly, but from the feeling that the world had suddenly become bigger and more complicated than it had been just a day earlier. When we reached my apartment, David parked and turned toward me. "Emily, if anything else happens, no matter how small, call me." His kindness almost broke me. "Okay," I whispered. He gave a small nod and drove away, and I stood there in the cool night, staring at my building until the silence felt soft again instead of sharp. Inside, my apartment looked exactly the same as I left it, small, quiet, ordinary. But I didn't feel ordinary anymore. I sat on my couch, pulling my knees close, and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed with new messages from my family group chat. My mom. "Honey, please tell me you're safe." Anna. "Emily, call us. Please." My uncle. "We're praying for you." It felt strange. A day earlier, they had mocked me at dinner. Now they spoke to me like I had become someone fragile, someone important, someone they finally saw. I didn't reply. Not yet. My thoughts were too heavy. I must have drifted to sleep at some point because when I woke up, my room was filled with early morning light, soft and yellow, like the world was trying to tell me everything would be okay. But of course, it wasn't. My phone buzzed again. A text. From an unknown number. The same number as before. "Wake up, Emily. You're behind schedule." I sat up fast. My breath caught. Then another message came through. "The next clue is already waiting for you. Go to your family home." My heart dropped. My family home? Why? What did they leave there? I stood up slowly, trying to calm the shaking in my hands. I grabbed my coat and my bag. I didn't want to go alone, but I also didn't want to drag David into something the police hadn't cleared yet. I called my mom instead. She picked up instantly. "Emily? Are you okay? Do you want me to come get you?" "Your uncle says." "Mom." My voice cracked. "I need to come home. Something happened." Her breath caught. "Come. Right now. We'll be here." I stepped out of my apartment and into the morning sunlight. The streets were quieter than usual. People walked dogs. Cars stopped at lights. Everything looked normal, but inside me, nothing was normal anymore. My family's house wasn't far. I took a rideshare, and the whole way there, my legs bounced nervously. When the car stopped, I saw my mom waiting on the front porch, arms crossed tightly. Anna stood beside her, eyes red from worry. I walked up the steps. My mom hugged me instantly, holding me like I had been missing for years. Emily, talk to us. Tell us what's going on. I don't know everything yet, I said, voice low, but someone left something here. Something meant for me. My mom froze. For you? How would they? She didn't get to finish. Because when she opened the front door, all three of us gasped. There, sitting in the middle of the living room floor, on the carpet where I used to do homework as a kid, was another box. A larger one this time. Black. Closed. Untouched. Sitting perfectly centered, like someone had placed it gently and walked away. My mom's voice trembled. Emily, what is happening? Anna stepped back, covering her mouth. How did someone get inside? We were home all night. No one came in. My stomach twisted. Someone had been in this house. Someone had moved quietly through these rooms. Someone had placed the box where they knew I'd find it. I stepped forward. My mom grabbed my arm. Emily, don't. What if? But the box wasn't buzzing, clicking, or giving any sign of danger. It just sat there, silent and almost peaceful. I knelt beside it. There was a note taped to the top. My name again, written in the same neat handwriting. I peeled the note off with shaking fingers. Chapter 2, What They Hid. Open this box when you're ready. My heart slammed once hard. This wasn't random. This wasn't chance. Whoever was behind this was unfolding a story, chapter by chapter, like they wanted me to follow along. Like they wanted me to learn something piece by piece. My mom whispered, Emily, don't open it yet. Let the police come. But something in me, a mix of fear, curiosity, and a strange sense of responsibility, knew that whatever was inside this box was meant for me. I reached slowly for the lid. My hand touched the edge. I lifted. And just as the box began to open, just as the cardboard separated and the light slipped inside, a sharp knock hit the front door. Hard. Urgent. And a voice called, Police. Open up. Now. The box froze half open in my hands. My mom gasped. Anna whispered, Emily, what now? That is where I will end chapter 5. A new box sits in the family home. A new chapter title, What They Hid. And the police have arrived at the exact moment Emily begins to open it. The next chapter, Chapter 6, will continue right from this moment, with what's inside the box, what the police know, and how everything ties back to the night Emily was mocked and the fix that changed everything. The knock at the door was so loud it felt like the whole house shook. My fingers froze on the half-open box. My heart jumped into my throat. Police. Open up. Now. My mom hurried toward the door, hands trembling. Anna stood beside me, her face pale and worried. For a moment, no one moved. The house held its breath. Then the knocking came again, harder this time. My mom finally pulled the door open. 2 officers stood outside, dark jackets, serious faces, radios crackling softly. Behind them, a police car idled on the street. A neighbor peeked through a window across the yard. Mrs. Carter? The taller officer asked. Yes, my mom whispered. What is this about? We need to speak with Emily, he said, stepping inside with calm urgency. Right away. Anna looked at me, eyes wide. Emily, what did you do? Nothing, I whispered, but even I didn't fully believe it anymore. Too many strange things had happened. Too many clues. Too many messages with my name included. The officer noticed the black box on the carpet and pointed toward it. Is that what I think it is? He asked. We don't know what's inside, I said. I was about to open it. He raised a hand. Please step away from the box. We'll handle it from here. I took a slow step back. Anna held onto my elbow like she thought I might fall. My mom stood behind the couch, one hand pressed to her chest like she couldn't get enough air. The second officer knelt by the box, putting on gloves. He lifted the lid carefully, slowly, ready to back away if anything seemed wrong. My heart pounded. He pulled the lid fully open and let out a long, relieved breath. It wasn't a weapon, or a threat, or anything dangerous. Inside was a thick stack of papers. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Contracts, invoices, shipping reports, email printouts, company memos. The officer flipped through the pages, his eyes narrowing more with each sheet. "What is all that?" Anna asked softly. The officer didn't answer right away. He just read. Then he passed the stack to the taller officer. "This," he said carefully, "looks like evidence." My breath caught. "Evidence of what?" The tall officer exhaled. "Evidence of illegal deals, done through Market Lane's logistics system. Someone was using the company's shipping tools to move things they shouldn't have moved." My stomach twisted. "Illegal?" my mom whispered. The officer nodded. "And it seems very carefully hidden. Until someone—" He looked straight at me. "Closed the loophole." My fix. The bug I corrected. The small correction I made on my laptop late at night. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I just fixed a glitch. I didn't know it was covering something bad." "That's exactly why they're angry," the officer said. "Whoever was behind these illegal shipments lost access when you fixed that bug. They thought you would never notice. They thought Market Lane wouldn't notice either." Marcus, who had come with us after coordinating with the police, ran a hand through his hair. "This explains everything," he muttered. "The fire, the threats, the strange logins. Whoever was doing this needed the loophole to stay open. And when it didn't," the officer said, "they panicked." My legs felt weak. Anna stepped closer and took my hand gently, carefully, like she finally understood the weight I'd been carrying since that dinner. "So, all this time," she whispered, "you were fixing something big." I nodded slowly. "Bigger than any of us realized." The taller officer glanced back at the papers. "We need to take this to the station. It may help us identify exactly who is responsible." My mom wiped a tear. "But why bring it to our house?" she asked. "Why not send it to the police directly?" The officers exchanged a look. "That's what we want to understand," one said. "Why involve Emily so personally?" I thought about the messages. About the phrase, Chapter 1, "The night you were mocked." About being lured to the warehouse. About Jaden whispering my name. "It feels like someone is telling a story," I said softly. "And they want me to follow it." The officer didn't disagree. He stood, holding the papers. "We'll need to take your statement later. For now, stay home. Stay together. And call us immediately if anything else happens." He started toward the door. But just before he left, he paused. "Emily, your fix didn't just save the company money. You may have stopped a serious crime. You did something important." My chest tightened. For the first time, it all felt real. When the police left, the house went silent again. My mom hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Anna's arms wrapped around me too, her voice trembling as she said, "Emily, I'm sorry for everything I said. I didn't know. I didn't understand." I didn't cry, but something inside me softened. We sat together for a long time. No jokes about being broke. No mocking. No superiority. Just quiet understanding. Later that afternoon, David called. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I'm okay," I said. "Just tired." "I heard what the officers found," he said. "Emily, we had no idea someone was using our system illegally. That loophole you fixed? It wasn't just a minor bug. You stopped something serious." "I didn't know," I whispered again. "You didn't have to know," he replied. "You had the skills. You saw the flaw. You fixed it. That's what matters." I listened quietly. "There's something else," David continued. "We want to offer you a position. Officially. Full-time. Leading a team, not just helping us, but building for us." I blinked, stunned. "You don't have to say yes now," he added. "Just know the offer is real. And it comes with security support, too." Security support. That felt comforting. My voice trembled a little. "Thank you, David. Really. You earned this," he said softly. "And whatever this mystery is, you won't face it alone." After the call, I sat on the porch with my mom and Anna. The sun set slowly across the neighborhood. Kids rode bicycles. A dog barked somewhere down the block. The world looked normal again. But inside me, something had changed. Mom looked over at me. "Emily, I'm proud of you. Truly. I'm sorry I didn't see how hard you were working." Anna nodded awkwardly beside her. "I shouldn't have teased you. I didn't know how much you were building. How brave you were." I smiled, small, tired, but real. Their words didn't erase the years of jokes and doubts. But they mattered. They healed something old. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. A week passed. The police investigated the logs, the backup server, the illegal shipments. The warehouse was searched again. Jaden recovered slowly and promised to help the investigation. The hooded figure remained missing, but the trail they left, the papers, the USB, the clues, gave the police enough direction to trace the crime ring behind the logistics scheme. Market Lane tightened their systems. Security increased. And after long talks with my family and with David, I accepted the job. On my first day, walking through those glass doors, people greeted me with nods, smiles, even applause. Not because I was a hero, but because I had shown what quiet work, done with care, could really mean. David met me in the hallway. "Ready, boss," he teased gently. This time I laughed. And there was no fork dropping, no mocking voices, no shrinking inside myself. I belonged here. That night, I went home to my family for dinner. This time, the table was warm. My mom cooked my favorite meal. Anna asked questions about my job, not sarcastically, but with real interest. We talked. We listened. We didn't mock each other. When dessert came, my mom reached for my hand and said, "We didn't treat you right, but we're grateful for you." I swallowed a lump in my throat. "It's okay," I whispered. "I know better now who I am. And what I can do." The doorbell rang. All of us jumped a little, remembering the boxes and the messages. But when I opened the door, it wasn't a hooded figure. It wasn't the police. It wasn't a package. It was a simple envelope on the porch. White. Plain. Quiet. With 2 words written on the front. "Thank you." No signature. No threats. Nothing else. Just "thank you." I picked it up slowly and held it to my chest. Maybe the mysterious figure wasn't finished. Maybe the entire story wasn't fully told yet. But the danger had passed. The truth had come to light. And the night my family mocked me had become the night everything changed. Not because someone called me boss. Not because Market Lane found out about my fix. Not because the police protected us. But because I learned my own value. Quiet, steady, and stronger than anyone ever realized. And that was the best revenge of all.